If you've grown up without any other business owners, without any entrepreneurial minds, or let's say fitness and health related people around you, this video is for you. As someone who has been overweight most of my life, I got bullied as a kid for being overweight. When I started a business, I had nobody around me to ask questions. It was literally just me, just challenging myself and just using my brain to put myself in situations to learn. And often feeling very alone. I get how it feels when you are stuck, when you can't move forward, when you're just not seeing those opportunities and you've got no idea how. So, this video today is going to break down some of those mindset shifts and hopefully give you maybe some inspiration, some tools to be able to take away, and just some lessons that I've learned over the nearly decade of running my own business. So, the first thing is that it's okay to not know. The big thing that I actually found for me was a huge benefit here was you're changing the whole dynamic of your family's future. You might not have had that role model or person around you to lean upon, but what you're actually proving is that you don't need to have that. And so if you remember that you don't need to have that, and there's a lot of other people that are literally changing the family tree and trying to do something different and create generational wealth and be an inspiration to others. That's the superpower in itself. That's the thing that's actually going to spur you on, because if nobody else knows, cool, it's your opportunity to find out. I get the point that it comes with this whole problem of not being able to then lean upon someone. Now, this is where putting yourself in networks is going to be hugely, hugely beneficial to you. It's the cost that you have to pay to have access to those minds. It'd be great if you grew up in a household of business owners and they could give you the advice, give you the support. But most people don't have that. So the big thing that you're going to need to focus on now that you've realized that, yeah, okay, you are doing this for yourself. You are changing the generations of your family to come by hopefully creating a business and wealth that you can pass on to them. Now you need people around you to give you that different perspective on life. You see, every time I spend every time I spend time around people who are at a higher level, they're operating and thinking bigger, they've got a better lifestyle, they're more in tune with their body, they don't let their weight fluctuate so much. They're the big things that will drive you forward. When I've been around people who are very lethargic with all of it, not really bothered about it, it rubs off on you. If you've got people that are always allowing themselves to get away with not doing the right thing or just not pushing themselves hard, it becomes part of your life unless you are unbelievably rigid in your own mindset of what you're achieving, which is very rare for most people. Because when you're around people that are doing that and allowing themselves to slip to those poor standards, you end up becoming the last one that does it as well. So putting yourself around good, like-minded people, and I will say this from experience, that will grow and change and chop and change throughout your journey, because you'll reach certain levels of business and then those people that you met before won't really have caught up with you or won't really have kept up. Then you've got the next lot of business where you're trying to then get to the higher level and you're in that ballpark where you're trying to learn new things and new systems, new processes and new ways of thinking that are going to force you to get rid of some of those older people and start attaching yourself to new people. So that can be really difficult, like as you transition up the levels and you start talking to people who have got different levels of wealth, different business structures, different niches. But actually, that can be one of the best things as well. Because when I've had conversations with people outside of my typical niches, the people that I work with typically, that's where you get new ideas from. That's where you get those little angles that everyone else isn't doing, which gives you the space to go and do something that is unique. It's a bit different. So that can be an absolute goldmine, putting yourself around people that are in different environments, right? Now, as someone who believes that I've got ADHD, and I'm 90% sure that it's like that, I went to a BNI meeting the other day. Right. And it's a space full of business owners. I sat down and it was very structured and played with my mind a lot because I just found it boring for most of it. But it's full of business owners who are talking about what they do and how they help people. And basically creating a network where other businesses can like help each other, and a lot of the inside of it, they were helping a lot of other business owners out, which then meant there's like this really good network of people that were creating business for others and supporting each other. However, I couldn't quite get hold of the whole like networky. It was so rigid and structured that I found myself like, just bored, lost. And so you're going to typically fall into one of these two categories where you're very system and structured based. And obviously for getting to really high levels of business, you need to have that type of mindset. Or to caveat that, you need someone inside of your business that's very good at that so you can be the thinker. Because I'm very much a thinker and outside the box ideas, not necessarily the person who's got all the systems and strategies and processes. I don't get the same buzz off of that side of the business as I do the other side of it, right? So when you're in these environments, you have to go to ones that suit you. Sure, the system and structure could get me success from being in something like the BNI where they're passing work around to each other and it can work really well. The other side of it is then, do you go out and try other methods? Do you join other types of groups that are more like, thought-based, or maybe just other networking events where it's more social or something? Like, is putting yourself in rooms that you find work for you and tasting loads of these things. Like I said, if I hadn't gone to the BNI meeting, I wouldn't have known that wasn't for me, right? And maybe I would have missed out on something. However, at the same time, a different type of event where, they talk about different like processes towards like how you can think on things. For me, like that's my bag. That's where I like feel like I've got my energy, and that's where I feel like I can push myself more. So it's just finding those networks that work well for you. And like I said, that will chop and change over time. But the whole point is that's where the excitement comes from, of learning new things, trying new approaches, and that's where you can grow a lot too, right? And the big thing that I also have struggled with, and I've done other videos on, is obviously like from a body perspective. Now, as someone who helps people become more of an authority online, right? The way you look and appear, like I said, you don't have to. You can look at someone like Rory Sutherland, who isn't in the greatest of shapes, right? But is incredibly, incredibly knowledgeable and, sought after in the industry because of the way he thinks and the way he approaches things. Do I want a body like his? I don't. However, you've got other people who look the part but can't actually build those systems and structures to actually grow the business and build things, right? But when you are looking at from the model of who you market, how you market yourself, and this is where it's very much dependent on yourself. If you don't do the things like looking after your body, eating well, whatever vitamins and so on that you might need, and supplements and anything else that works well for your body, when it comes to being an authority, to putting yourself out there, to marketing yourself, when you come to talk on camera, when you show up to do an event, when you talk on stage, when you're just literally communicating with other people, you will find it more difficult naturally if you don't feel comfortable in your own self. And that's something that I've gone through a number of times. I look at pictures and I think to myself, like, no wonder I was struggling back then. You can see it, you can feel it. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be stupidly lean and, bikini beach body ready like every day of the week. What this just means is that if you are not in a place where you feel comfortable and confident in your own skin, and you're pushing yourself and you're working out hard, and you're getting the best out of your body, I do believe for a lot of people that everyone judges each other. And I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I'm saying everyone does, right? Now, you're going to look at someone who keeps himself in relatively good shape, who always appears well, who dresses smart, who has that energy about them and isn't so worried about other bits and pieces. You're going to find them easier to be around, typically because they're more relaxed in themselves, they're more comfortable, and they've got less like baggage in here to be able to operate at a better level. And this is where it's important, especially as you go with business and so on. And it's easy to fall off the bandwagon with this and find yourself overeating because it's a stressful time, or maybe family life or whatever. But health and fitness is always going to be one of those catalysts that helps you move forward. Every time that I lock in with my health and fitness, and I stay rigid to it, and I put myself around people who don't allow themselves to do those things, it is infectious. It does rub off on you. And then, when you go to the beach, you don't mind taking your top off. Like, I've become so much more confident in my own skin because I've gone through the stages now of putting myself around people who hold themselves accountable to that level and want to show up as that person because they've made it as part of their identity. And this is a big thing that this all falls down to, right? Is if you are someone who hasn't grown a business before, doesn't have people around them to support them, someone who struggles to like network with other people, haven't found that space where it's theirs and they can truly express themselves, or maybe you're going through that transitional phase like I've gone through where you're kind of shifting away from one market, moving into another type of people, a crowd of people that you're around. And then if your fitness and your health and basically the way you show up for yourself isn't right, it all comes down to an identity and how you see yourself, right? Because that identity shift from shifting away from, oh, I've got nobody in the family, so I can't do it, to I'm the one that's going to change this pattern for the rest of my family. That's part of like an identity that you can grow into, not the other one where, well, I haven't got that around me, so I won't do it, or nobody else has done it, so I don't know how, right? Then especially with the network, if you're moving, your business, so if you change from one thing to another, or maybe you're shifting up another level and you're joining mentorships, whereas people performing at higher levels and making more cash, your identity shifts again. You put yourself in rooms with other people that your identity is going to shift into a different place, and you start thinking differently. Your health, your fitness, the way you approach life, and that goes back home to your family, like how you around your kids. If you haven't got kids, your friends and so on, like the network you've got around you. If you don't work on your identity about who you are and how you show up. Now, most men won't like to dig into this stuff because we don't like to feel like we don't know who we are, right? From experience, women are likely to be more open to that. I'm not saying that they don't know who they are, but like from when I ran my identity unlock program, I had a hell of a lot more women sign up to me than I did men, just purely because it's based around the fact that like men, if you don't know who you are, that's not a great sign. We don't like that. So if we don't touch into it, we don't have to, scratch that itch or have that problem. Whereas actually, if you sit there and think, well, that's how I'm showing up and I don't like that, you would shift that because that's not the identity you want to show up with, right? If you don't have the family, if you don't have the business, maybe you're shifting up with, the brackets, right? Or like you said, your whole just life perspective isn't in the right place. That's where you have to make that big identity shift of who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? If you haven't got the support and things around you, how can you put yourself around those like-minded people? How can you set your morning routine up to be in that type of place where you put yourself in the right frame of mind for that? How do you get the work done? How do you prioritize your health? All those things are basically made up into your DNA, your identity. So if the one big takeaway you get from this video today is about that identity shift into like taking yourself out of where you are and putting yourself into the place where you need to be to get that success, to get the status, the safety, whatever it is for yourself. It's not the cars, the money, like, yeah, that'd be great, but it's more about the environment you create for people, the home that you've got, the financial safety, all of those things. You have to make that identity shift. And then when you find yourself falling off the track with it, maybe that you're not quite in line with things anymore, you have to have systems in place to see that that's happening. Every time that I haven't had that system in place and like kept to it, that's when business and everything has gone downhill. My weight's gone downhill, everything. When you have got a system in place where you check yourself and you go, hey, am I showing up as the person I need to be? Do I look the part? Do I feel the part? Is my business looking healthy? As like, have I got people around me? They're a very big indicator on where you need to go and operate so that you can have that success, because without it, it makes life and business even harder. So the big takeaway from this, if you need that big identity shift, sit down and work out, what do I want to create? Who do I need around me to create that? And where do I need to create that for myself? That's your lifestyle, your network, and your drive and your focus on what you want to create for yourself. You put that all together, that will give you the big identity shift from where you were stuck, where you haven't had the support, where you haven't got the mind and the body that you want to take yourself forward, into creating all of that success for yourself. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you found it just insightful to see how I've come from being someone who was overweight, lost, no direction, no family around, like no family members around them that actually have the business knowledge and the leadership advice to be able to take me to that level. And I wasn't around people that could show me that either. I had to invest into it and find a way to get myself into that. It can be done. You can go from zero, like I did, to earning 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, £100,000 a month. The numbers are just a measurement of how much work you're doing and the impact you're having. You can shift over from that because I've done it, I've been there, and I've created that for myself. And that's the big shift that's going to help you get there. I hope you found this video useful and liked it. Smash that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.